Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker. Thank you for joining me today. Before we start today's card, I wanted to announce the giveaway winners from last week's card giveaway. These are the 5 winners who were randomly selected to receive a card from me. If your name's on the list, please send me an email with your address so that I can send you a card as soon as possible. My email address is right on the bottom of the screen, and also you can go to my blog to contact me. For today's card, I started with a piece of cardstock and I marked where the center of the paper was. I'm going to take my pencil and just draw a line right down the center of the paper. And this is just so that I can line up these dies. When I was planning out this card, I knew that I wanted to make a shaker card because I haven't made one in a really long time. And when I was looking through my stamp sets, I decided I wanted to use the Mama Elephant Dragon Wishes stamp set. There's a bunch of little dragons in that stamp set that I thought I really wanted to use, but because they're so small, I got this idea to make a ton of really little shaker windows. So I'm going to do a square card with 9 small circles on it. I tried to line up these circles as best as possible, but it would have been a little easier if I owned a T-square ruler, but I think I did pretty well. Once all the die cutting was done, I cut this down to 5 by 5. I cut another square to be just a little bit smaller than 5 by 5, and this will eventually be the back of all of these shaker windows, so I'm marking with my pencil where all of these circles line up. Now that I have those pencil marks as a guide, I'm going to use a different color Distress Oxide ink in each one of those sections so that all of my shaker windows will have a different color background. I kind of went in rainbow order with these colors, but it's definitely not your traditional rainbow. The colors that I used are picked raspberry, spiced marmalade, fossilized amber, twisted citron, lucky clover, peacock feathers, salty ocean, wilted violet, and seedless preserves. I used my ATG gun to glue a piece of acetate to this panel of paper with all of the circles cut out of it. I meant to glue my acetate sheet to the side of the paper that had all of my pencil markings on it, but I accidentally glued it to the wrong side. This wasn't too big of a deal. It didn't mean that I had to redo this at all. It just meant that I was going to have to do some erasing on this side. It just gave me a little bit more work to do. Also, if I had known I was going to be erasing these pencil marks, I would have drawn them a lot lighter. Next, I used some foam tape and made squares around each one of these circles. It takes a little while to do, but it's worth it in the end. I only did 1 layer of foam tape, but if I were to make this card again, I would definitely do 2, because the sequins do move around, but they don't move quite as much as I'd like them to. And if I had doubled up on the foam tape, then they would move a lot easier. I'm just using clear sequins for each one of these circles, just in a few different sizes. I debated on whether or not to use different color sequins, but because my background is so colorful, I don't think the sequins need to be. Plus the clear ones, they kind of show the color of the background through them. They take on whatever color is behind them, so they kind of look like they are colorful anyways. I took this background panel that I inked up with the Distress Oxide ink, and I carefully lined it up and pressed it down. So I have my main shaker component created. Okay, so I mentioned before that I wanted to use the Mama Elephant set Dragon Wishes. So here are all the little dragons that come from that stamp set. I used my Misty tool to stamp these in Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink onto some Bristol Smooth paper. I'm going to be doing some very simple coloring with my Arteza markers and then adding a little bit more detail with my Prismacolor pencils. These images are really small, so the coloring has to be kept kind of simple. I'm not going to explain the coloring too much here, so for the most part what I do is I start with my lightest color and then blend that out with my water brush, and then I go to my next darkest color and blend that out. And if I do happen to do a third, I do that next, but for most of these I only use 2 shades. For the wings on all of the dragons, I'm kind of going with like a peach color. So I've mentioned before that my Arteza marker set is one of the older sets that doesn't have the color names on the sides. So I went on the Arteza website, and they have a swatch chart with the names on it. So I tried to match my markers up to that swatch chart so that I knew the names of my colors. But as it turns out, the 48 set that's on their website has different colors in it than the 48 set that I own. So they must have updated it and changed the colors in it. For the past few videos that I've made, I've been trying to talk more instead of using music during the coloring. I had someone suggest that if I don't know what to talk about, to just talk about myself and how I got into card making. So I'm going to give that a try. So I've always been really into art from the time that I was a young kid. I used to draw a lot, especially in high school. I had lots of sketchbooks and I draw all the time. I kind of want to get back into drawing. It's been a while, and if you don't use it with art, you kind of lose it. So I'm probably really out of practice with it. So anyways, when I was picking a major for college, I decided I wanted to go to school for graphic design because it incorporated my two big loves, which were art and technology. Speaking of technology, I'm a huge nerd, by the way. I am really into video games and computers and all of that, so there's a little fact about me. So I went to college for graphic design, and while I was doing graphic design, I had to do some photography classes, and that's when I realized how much I loved photography. So it was at that point that I decided I wanted to move more towards photography instead of graphic design. I still finished my graphic design degree and I still do a lot of graphic design and I still love it. I do all of my own graphic design for my business and for my hobbies, and I also freelance it a little bit. But I wanted to do photography as my career. Around this time, I had my first child. I had my son Samuel. And when you have a kid and you have a camera, you take lots of pictures. So I took lots of pictures of my son, and then I really wanted to do something with them other than just putting them in frames on the walls. I was kind of running out of frames. So I decided to try scrapbooking. So my son was born in 2008, and probably around 2010 I started scrapbooking. So at some point during all of the scrapbooking, I discovered that my husband's mother, and my husband, actually my boyfriend at the time, but his mother was into scrapbooking and card making, and she was actually a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. So the two of us actually started talking more and more about scrapbooking and card making, and that's what kind of started me into card making. And when I was first getting into card making, I would look up a lot of layouts on Pinterest. And one time when I was looking up layouts, I ran across Christina Warner, and that's when I got really into card making. I remember when I first found her channel, I ended up binge watching all of her old videos, and it took a long time because she has a lot of videos, but I loved her style and her channel and all of her cards. They were beautiful, and I had never seen cards made quite that way before. So I really liked her style quite a bit, and that got me to start making my own cards more. So that was around 2012 when I started really getting into card making. So I've been doing this for about 6 years now. And then, of course, as you guys know, I started this YouTube channel and my blog in February. And so that's how I got into card making. If you guys have any other questions that you'd like me to answer, please feel free to ask them in the comments down below, and maybe I will answer them in a future video. Okay, so back to the card. After all of these dragons were colored in, I cut them out with my scissors, and now I'm popping them up with some foam tape on each of the four corners of the card. For this sentiment, I used a stamp from my Adorable Elephants stamp set by My Favorite Things, which says Happy Birthday. And I heat embossed that with white embossing powder on a strip of black paper, and I'm going to pop that up right in the middle of the card. I made a square card base, which is 5.5 by 5.5, out of some white cardstock. And then I also cut some black cardstock to be the same size. And then I'm just going to adhere that onto the front of the card using my ATG gun. Then I took the shaker piece that I created, and I'm going to glue that onto my card with my HEG gun as well. While I was lining this up, I noticed that I got a little spot of red ink on the white paper next to that blue dragon. So the way that I fixed that was I took my X-Acto knife and I just scratched it off the paper. And then I used an eraser and went over that to make it smooth again. If I owned a mono sand eraser, I would have used that to fix it, but I don't, so this is how I ended up doing it. To finish up this card, I went over the sentiment strip with my Wink of Stella, and then this card is all done. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you really enjoyed this shaker card design with all of these little dragons from the Mama Elephant Dragon Wishes stamp set. All of the supplies that I used to make this card can be found in the description down below. If you enjoyed watching, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so that you can see all of my future videos. I'm going to be back with another video on Friday. Again, thank you for watching. I appreciate every one of you, and I hope you have a great day.